How's everybody doing? What is the meaning of that heart? I don't know what you mean. How's everybody doing tonight? Haven't done a actual live stream for a while. John Reedy, you getting packed for Gettysburg? It just started raining here. We had a little downpour. I don't know if it's still raining. I can't see outside because all my windows are blacked out. But I hope you guys are doing good. Things are going pretty well here. It's been a really busy week, which we just capped off by my older of my two sons winning his soccer tournament this weekend. Undefeated season, and had to play against a bunch of his buddies from his high school team in the championship game. Three of his high school teammates were on the other team that he had to play in the championship, but we managed to win that 3-1. So Phantom of Darkness, I would absolutely love to go to Switzerland at some point, and I'm sure that is something that will happen. I don't know when. I don't have any specific plans at the moment, but I'm going to be kind of all around there this fall. So let me kind of fill you in on what's going on for this stream, kind of what we're going to be doing. As always, do kind of a general Q&A, but there are a few things I do want to kind of fill you in on and share with you while we're here. We're going to talk a little bit more about my plans for this weekend. Going to be in Gettysburg Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Coming home Monday morning because I know July 3rd is still part of the anniversary, but it's also my daughter's 18th birthday, so we definitely want to be back for that. So be coming home on the 3rd, but I'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all day. Driving down Friday morning. A lot of events we're going to be a part of while we're there, and some things that aren't necessarily things that I'm like officially a part of, but I'll probably be around for, that I'm not necessarily advertised as being present for, and I'll fill you in on some of that. Also going to talk a little bit about the trip that my daughter and I just took, along with a bunch of other people, over to France. And I'll show you some pictures and just talk a little bit about some of the places that we saw and some of the videos that we made that you can be looking forward to. So let me just kind of get caught up on things here. Hi from London and the 147th anniversary. It is 147th anniversary of the Little Bighorn, or the Greasy Grass, as the native side called it. And that's a place I definitely hope to get to. I'm actually going to be out that way here in a couple weeks. I'm going to be in Denver, but only for a couple of days for Rachel's Challenge event. Do I think Australia would be a good trip? Australia would be amazing. I'd have to really do some digging to figure out where I'd want to go to. I'd probably want to go to New Zealand while I'm down there if I did that. I will share a little bit of my thoughts on the Russia situation, but not too much, just because I typically avoid modern stuff on the channel. But it is history unfolding, so I will talk a little bit about it. Somebody asked how church was this morning. It was great. I won't be there next week, so it was good to be there today, leading music, doing the message and everything. We had a lot of visitors there today, so that was cool. But yeah, so real quick, first of all, let me ask anybody who's in the chat, what is my favorite 80s song, Christian? Summer of '69. Definitely my favorite 80s song. Will my book be available in Germany? If you're talking about the book that is still a while off yet, on the 20th Ohio that I'm working on, I don't see why it wouldn't be. Royal Museum in Stockholm, I'd love to get to Sweden someday. Absolutely. My favorite Civil War song, Battle Hymn of the Republic. Absolutely, without a doubt. I've got a few others too, but yeah, I'm starting to grow a mustache. We'll see how long it lasts. It looks more substantial than it really is because it's so dark. I've only been growing it for about a week and a half. And I've also been growing all of this for the same amount of time, but it all comes in white and it comes in real thin. It doesn't come in nearly as thick or as dark as the mustache does, so that's why that is more prominent. I do need to get a haircut before I go to Gettysburg this weekend. Have not been to Norway. Is anybody going to Gettysburg this weekend? would love to see you there, and would love to kind of tell you some of the places where you're going to be able to see. Some good news, though. Since most of you I know can't be in Gettysburg this weekend, these events, I believe, the two official events that I'm a part of, I believe are both being live streamed. I know for sure that the first one, the one that you're seeing on the screen there, will be live streamed on this channel. It'll be live streamed on History Underground, live streamed here, and I think also live streamed on the American Battlefield Trust site. It's going to be simultaneously live streamed on multiple YouTube channels. So you'll be able to see that whole thing. That is going to be me, JD from the History Underground, and then Gary and Chris from the American Battlefield Trust. I know all three of those guys. I've spent time with all three of them on battlefields and at historic sites, and boy, I could not be in better company than with those three guys on the Gettysburg battlefield to talk. And we're specifically going to be talking about YouTube as a platform for teaching history and what that looks like. And it's cool that they titled it From Gettysburg to Normandy and Beyond, because JD and I were just in Normandy a couple of weeks ago, and we'll be there in Gettysburg, of course. So that'll be, I don't know how long that'll last, but that is a ticketed event, and there are still a few tickets available. I talked to Andrew, who is the head of the Adams County Historical Society Museum there, and he expects that it will probably sell out this week. So the proceeds from those tickets go to the Adams County Historical Society, to the museum, and it also gets you admission to the museum, which is brand new and it's fantastic. Highly recommend it. Who do I stand in BTS? I don't know anything about them, so I couldn't tell you. Apart from Grant, what historical figure would I most likely want to hang out with? Ooh, good question. Probably Theodore Roosevelt. Thoughts on the Titanic sub? So interesting about that. I just saw today that apparently Mr. Beast had been invited to be on that and turned it down. So that would have been quite something. It's sad. It sounds like it was preventable, which is especially tragic. A lot of the people who are in that field and do those things seem to be pretty critical of that company. Let the investigation play out, but sadly it sounds like it was a preventable tragedy, but we'll see. What battle do I know more, Verdun or the Somme? Definitely the Somme. The Somme is probably the battle I know the most about from the First World War. So yeah, but both are fantastic battlefields to visit. Do I prefer Paris or London? London, and it's not close. Honestly, and listen, acknowledging my bias as an Anglophile, I love the UK. I really was not a fan of Paris. The history's great, but man, I just was not a fan of Paris. Of all the big cities that I've been in Europe, probably my least favorite so far. Yeah, I'll do a 90s video for sure at some point. Little Round Top is closed, and I believe will be closed until sometime next year. What do I think happened? I think that it probably was not built out of the right materials, and it just weakened over time, and you go down there with that kind of pressure and you get one little weak spot and you're done, unfortunately. What battle do I wish I knew more about? I would say, I don't know if there's a specific battle, but as a whole, I wish I knew more about the Napoleonic Wars, and that's something I'm trying to learn more about. Best 80s rock band. Ooh. Boy, that's tough. Oh, there's so many good ones. I gotta go with U2. I think U2. U2 or Queen, probably. What do I like about Paris? Too many people, first of all. Really crowded. I mean, like, you know, I was in London in the summer last year, and it was crowded, but it didn't feel crowded. And granted, London's a much bigger city than Paris, but it just, everywhere you went, you were stuffed on the trains with no room to even breathe. Just the tourism thing. I mean, there were just so many people everywhere, and it was kind of dirty. It reminded me a lot of New York City in terms of how dirty a lot of the spots were. Just couldn't get into it. Hey, JD in the house. So yeah, I was just talking about our event there. I know JD's got a bunch of events that he's got going on. I've definitely been telling everybody, make sure you check out the Gettysburg Museum of History while you're there. Eric Dorr, I've gotten to know Eric over the last few months. Hung out with him in Gettysburg, and then I was with him on the tour in Normandy. And I'm telling you guys, fantastic guy, super nice guy, really loves history and is passionate about sharing that history through all of the kind of memorabilia and stuff that he has collected. And his collection is just will blow your mind when you see the stuff that he's got. Favorite woman in history? Ooh, good question. I've got a few, but right up there would be Anne Frank for me. Just love her story. Still upset with my Back to the Future rating. Sorry about that, Rob. So, let's see. I don't know anything about BTS, Kaiser Wilhelm, so I can't tell you. What do I think about Sabaton? I love Sabaton. They're my favorite band. So, all right. So, yeah, let me share with you a little bit more of what we're doing. So, Seminary Ridge Museum, and I am ashamed to say, I'm hoping I'll correct that this weekend, that in my probably 20 or so visits to Gettysburg in the last 30 years, I have never been in the Seminary Ridge Museum, and I've never been up in the cupola of the Lutheran Seminary. I need to fix that. I need to correct that, so I need to get to that. Have I been to Aachen? I haven't been in the city, but I've been on the outskirts of Aachen. Yes. Great Scott, Chris. But JD and I, so originally JD and I were kind of talking, and I have to give JD all the credit because he did all the hard work in organizing all this stuff. I just kind of was like, yeah, I'd love to do that, and then kind of just offered a little bit of feedback here and there as he bounced some ideas off of me, but JD did all the work for this. Originally we were going to do one event, and it ended up becoming two different events. One is on the 1st at 7, one's on the 2nd at 7. And the one, I already told you about the one on the first one. On the second is going to be with Matt from Addressing Gettysburg, which you have to check out if you haven't already. Check out their YouTube channel, their podcast. It's fantastic. I've met Matt briefly a few times last time I was in Gettysburg. But we're going to be doing something. And our kind of forum is called Gettysburg, the Gateway Drug of the Civil War. And that's so appropriate. I don't know who came up with the name, but it works. I'm guessing maybe Matt came up with it. Sounds like something he might have done. But is Gettysburg overrated? I don't think so. I think it is really, really important. I less think it's overrated, and I think that Vicksburg gets underrated. I think Vicksburg is every bit as important, if not more important, than Gettysburg. And had it happened at any other time than the first week of July of 1863, Vicksburg would have been the national headline. But because it happened at the same time that Robert E. Lee finally got decisively defeated by a Union army, I think a lot of people just overlooked Vicksburg, unfortunately. Did I see Napoleon III's grave? I don't think so. No, I don't think we saw his grave when we were there. What do I think of Robert Kennedy? He can't win, no. He's just a little too kooky to be able to win, unfortunately. Is Vicksburg celebrating a 160th? I believe they did, but they have some stuff going on. But again, everybody's looking at Gettysburg. So Dad Talks, thank you for that. I haven't been to really any monuments in Canada. I've been to Toronto, but really didn't see a whole lot when I've been there. So how close was the Battle of Gettysburg? Probably not as close as people think it was. What top 3 battlefields do I recommend visiting in the U.S.? Gettysburg, Lexington and Concord, and Vicksburg. Lee, maybe not under the weather, but he was having some heart issues. But I don't think that really affected anything. Did not go to Versailles. would like to get there. Versailles is kind of an all-day thing, and we didn't have that much time in Paris, unfortunately. So yeah, I'll show you a few pictures from our time in Paris. Let's take a look here. Yeah, so the Eiffel Tower, let me tell you, we had tickets to go all the way to the top. Couldn't go all the way to the top. The very top was closed, so we were only at the second level. But learned a lot that I did not know about the Eiffel Tower. And let me tell you what, like a lot of things, it is enormous. And I think it's way bigger than people realize until they see it in person. What's this Concord place you're referring to? JD took a lot of flack when he did a video about Concord, and he called it Concord. Millard Fillmore did not fight in the Civil War. No, I don't believe so. Yeah, part of the reason we didn't go to Versailles was that we knew it would be crowded, but also it's like it's not in Paris, it's outside the city, and it's kind of an all-day thing if you go there. What was my biggest sorry I'm American culture shock moment in Europe? I haven't had too many because I try to be very mindful of the other cultures. So I try not to be an obnoxious American tourist when I'm there. But probably the number of the number of extra drinks that I get when I go out to eat. The number of times I had to order another Coke or, things like that, just because they don't give you very much at once and you don't get free refills like you do in the U.S. So let's see what else. These are some views from the top of the Eiffel Tower, which pretty cool, even though we were only at the top of the second part there. So in this picture here, you can see there's the Dome des Invalides. That's where Napoleon is buried. Marshal Foch is buried there. A few others. And you can see kind of right over there then the Cathedral of Notre Dame, which was not open. I believe it's supposed to open this fall sometime, reopen. Yes, Delaware has Fort Delaware, and I'm hoping to get there sometime, Kieran. Favorite part to study at Gettysburg? Right now I'm really into learning more about Culp's Hill, because I really would like to do a series of videos on the fight at Culp's Hill. A lot of people don't realize that there were more rounds fired at Culp's Hill than anywhere else on that battlefield, and more continuous fighting took place on Culp's Hill than anywhere else, and it was the only site on the battlefield that saw significant fighting all 3 days of the battle. So this is a lot of Paris pictures here. Let's see what else we got. There's us on the Eiffel Tower. Yep. Hey, did you know that when the Eiffel Tower was first built, it was red? It was painted red. Yeah. So let's take a look here. Trying to find you some other stuff. So when we first got to Omaha Beach, there was a body on the beach, and I've got some video of it somewhere. But yeah, a body washed up on shore. Likely, I'm guessing, probably a migrant of some kind, somebody who was trying to take a raft over to the UK or something. We don't know for sure. But when we got there to Omaha Beach, it was high tide. You can see, came right up to the seawall there. But these are the police vehicles. And we actually, I don't think I have any pictures of it, but I do have some video of them actually carrying the body away in the body bag and everything. It was pretty crazy. A jogger found the body. Bigger the Statue of Liberty or Big, oh gosh, Statue of Liberty and Big Ben are tiny compared to the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower is like 6 times taller than the Statue of Liberty. It's way bigger than the Statue of Liberty. Have I walked Pickett's Charge? I have, but it's been quite a while. Jenny Wade House received something like 150 bullets, Vince, during the battle, yeah. And it's funny, 2 things about that. Number 1, it wasn't her house. It was her sister's house, I think. And number 2, her name wasn't Jenny. Nobody called her Jenny. They called her Ginny, or Mary Virginia Wade. But nobody called her Jenny. I'm really not entirely sure where that came from. So any meetup opportunities walking the battlefield, honestly, I'm probably going to play it by ear and see what's going on. I haven't really planned where I'm going to be, but I will definitely be out and about all 3 days that we're there. I'm definitely going to be exploring the battlefield. So if I once I know where I'm going to be, if you're going to be around in Gettysburg, I'll probably do some shorts and maybe some quick live streams from the battlefield, and you'll be able to see where we're at given times and things like that. I'm going to be there with my son. My son Eli is going to be there with me. So, Joe, thank you for that. Appreciate that. My personal opinion of John Brown's actions: was his execution justified? I do have a problem with a state charging somebody with treason. I think that's a federal government kind of charge. I'm not surprised it happened. I might hold short of saying justified, but I'm not surprised, and it was the expected outcome for what he did. So JD, I'm curious, because I've never really seen any like sources saying that she spelled her name Jenny, but I've never really looked at her letters and stuff. So did she actually sign her own name Jenny? Because thank you for that correction if that's the case. Have not visited all the 7 wonders of the world. Is my kid named after Eli Manning? No, because Eli Manning's name's not Eli. His name's Elisha. Eli is his nickname. All right, so yeah, so when we first got to Omaha Beach here, you can see all the foam. It was pretty crazy. It was very different than the next time we were there later in, like a day or two later. That's Gold Beach there. We kind of walked around a little bit, and my daughter was not a fan of the food that she got. Okay, so there you go. I stand corrected. So Jenny Way did sign her name Jenny. So there we go. Learn something new every day. So this is my daughter holding a 1930s edition of Mein Kampf that one of our friends purchased at a little memorabilia museum there in the little town there right on Gold Beach. Hey, Professor, what's going on? Jacob, what battle do I know most of in the Civil War? It would be Gettysburg. Do I think people in the 18th and 19th century focused on good penmanship? I don't know if they did it because they knew we'd be reading their mail. I just think they took a lot of pride in that. What's the longest trip I've been on? The longest I've been away from home at one time is about 2 weeks. Yeah, Aramash, that's it, Rob. But that was actually not for the channel. That was for Rachel's Challenge. And I was in Owasso, Oklahoma for several days. Then I went to Arizona, then to West Virginia, and then back to, I forget where I went after that, back out west somewhere. So I was like on the road for 2 weeks without coming home. That's the longest I've ever been traveling without coming back home. Favorite history Twitter account to follow? I got a few. Let me pull up Twitter because Twitter for me is a thing that I've always been on, but I never really post on Twitter. I retweet other people's stuff, and I read Twitter a lot, but I don't actually spend a lot of time. I did not purchase Greg. I didn't purchase a Mein Kampf. That was somebody else who purchased it. My daughter was just looking at the book that someone else purchased. I didn't purchase it. I didn't buy anything at that museum, actually. American Battlefield Trust is definitely one I love to follow. I follow quite a few. Let me read a few of them to you here. So let's see. World War I TV, new channel. Following. I'm just looking at History Channel specifically here. Tales from the Battlefield was a good one. He's a Commonwealth War Graves Commission volunteer. Let's see. Western Front Association, Dan Carlin. Project Past, who I believe we're going to be with this weekend. We Happy Few 506, American Battlefield Trust, Dan Snow. Historia Civilis, Kings and Generals, a lot of YouTube channels. Dan Hill, Genie of Vlogger, Drawn of History, History with Hilbert. So basically a lot of the YouTube channels. Paul Reed, who's a military historian, specializes mostly in World War I, but also World War II. I've learned a lot from him. And then a lot of like local battlefield, Paul Woodage, World War II, History Underground. The guys at World War II did do a 24-hour podcast. And I actually just got an email from Indy Nidell like a day or two ago that I need to respond to. Gonna try to at some point meet him. Do I know about the Battle of Schrute Farms? Dad talks. Thank you for that. I'm aware of it. Yes, I'm a big fan of The Office. But let's see. What's the most overrated figure in history? Boy, there's so many. I'm not sure who I could even think of to say first there. Vivaldi, you have a mild addiction to Grand Tactician, the Civil War. And you know what? I've taken a little break from it now, but I'm super excited to play their downloadable content when they have that like role play where you get to be an officer. Really excited about playing that when it happens. Greg, we've got people of all political persuasions on this channel that are all welcome. Do I know where the 4th Michigan Infantry Monument is? I actually don't. I know where the 24th Michigan Monument is. But no, that's a great question. Off the top of my head, I could not tell you. I'm not like Gary Edelman and folks like that who just know that kind of stuff really easily. I'll tell you in a second, though. So it is on Detroit Avenue near Sickles Avenue, so south end of the wheat field. There you go. It's down on the wheat field. I know JD will tell you it's his favorite spot in the battlefield, and it's one I highly recommend. It's so fascinating how much happened there in that one little area. Most average president, average by definition would be a lot of presidents. I don't know a lot of historic sites in South Ontario. Any of that Canadian smoke make its way to you? We had a warning for a couple of days here in Ohio about that, but it wasn't real bad here. But when my daughter and I flew home from Paris, we came into Paris into New York from Paris, and the sky was orange. It was really, really weird, and that was from the wildfires. I posted yesterday. You guys have been asking me about the whole Russia thing. I'm not going to get too into it, and I don't pretend to really understand the complexities of everything there. But the only things I would say about it is that I hope whatever happens, I hope for an end to the war and for a safe, secure, democratic government in both of those places, both Russia and Ukraine. That's all I hope for. I don't have a side in any of that. I wish Russia would get their troops, take them home, leave Ukraine to be able to rebuild, stay out of there, let Ukraine do its thing, let Russia do its thing, elect governments that are going to represent your people democratically, and there you go. Is Paris as dirty as they say it is? Yeah, it is. Literally got off the train, Gare du Nord, and walked the half mile to our hotel from the big train station there, and pretty much everywhere just smelled like urine, and there was trash. And listen, that's not unique to Paris. New York on any given day looks like that too, but it smelled pretty bad too. It was as dirty as they say it is. Best single volume books on the Gettysburg campaign. Wow, there's so many. The very first book I ever owned on Gettysburg is this one right here. And this is my signed copy of Frazanito's book. And Frazanito will be there this week signing his book. So that's pretty cool. Let me show you a few more pictures from our time there. So this chateau was really cool. And here's my daughter. There's Rob, history in your hand right there. And there's my daughter holding champagne, my 17-year-old daughter, because it's perfectly legal for her to do that there. But that was a cool event. We were there with a bunch of the guys, and there's me with some champagne and my hair being kind of crazy. This guy was amazing. This dude was 17 years old when he landed behind enemy lines on D-Day with the gliders from the Royal Ulster Rifles. And he's like 97 years old. He was sharp as a tack, man. You would never have known this guy was 97. Talking to him, he remembers everything like it was yesterday. He remembered my daughter's name like a half hour later after we had talked to him. And it was like one of the highlights of my life to stand there and just have a conversation with this guy. It was so cool. Missed your good side. Sorry about that, Rob. But let me show you some more here. Also, here's so Scott Gibson and I have been friends on Facebook for a while, and he saw me and right away he's like, Chris, like, it's always weird to me when people like actors know who I am. But Scott was really cool, and we had a great time hanging out with him. He was, if you're not familiar with him, he was ACAC. I think he was a captain in the Pacific. Canadian, fantastic guy, really cool. It was great hanging out with him. So then this was really cool too, because I'm standing there talking to Peter Youngblood Hills, who played Shifty Powers in Band of Brothers, and Eric Dorr, who you see standing there. And I said, while I was talking we kept calling him Shifty, but when I was talking to him, I said to Eric, Eric, show him what you got in your pocket. And what he's holding there is, that's Dick Winter's actual Distinguished Service Cross that he received from General Bradley for the actions at Brecourt Manor. And so, all these guys were like little kids when he pulled that out and showed it to him. It was super cool. And here's our friend Matt Leach, who played Talbert in Band of Brothers. And you see the shirt that he's wearing. He had posted that picture on Facebook like a week before. So Matt's a goofball. He is a force of nature, and it was amazing. So then here we are at, this is at Omaha Beach, Easy Red Sector. There's me on the right, Sander from Sander VK History. He's Dutch. There's JD. And then, oh gosh, JD, help me remember this guy's name and his channel, because I'm forgetting it right now. So please tell me. But he's got a channel as well. Really super cool dude. I don't know why there's a random picture of the 1985 tornado that's in there with all of that. And then here's me and Sander with my hair like crazy messed up for some reason. But here we are with, again, from Band of Brothers, you've got Mellet and Sergeant Grant there from Band of Brothers. So that was cool hanging out with those guys as well. What else can I show you here? So, oh yeah, super history nerd moment of my life right there. Standing World War II Wayfinder. Thank you, Rob. So my name is not Sam Nixon. No. So this is me at Brecourt Manor. So if you've seen, hey Rita, how's it going? You're in West Virginia. That's my cousin. So this is Dick Winter's Distinguished Service Cross that he received for the actions at Brecourt Manor. In that field behind me where I'm standing. Right along that tree line is where those guns were that they charged on D-Day. I shouldn't say charged, that they took very methodically, actually. And to hold that piece of history in that place was just out of hand. It was so cool. And thank you to Eric for making that happen, that moment happen for us. So that was really, really cool. Have I met any of the real Band of Brothers soldiers? No, unfortunately, I have not, and they're all gone now. So no, I haven't. But I know a lot of people who knew those guys. So I've heard a lot of like stories that came directly, like a lot of our tour guides that we've had, like Paul Woodage from World War II TV, who you see right here. So there's Paul Woodage on the left, there's Eric Dorr in the middle, and then that is Peter McCabe, who played Hoobler in Band of Brothers there on the right, and he was with us too. So Paul knew a lot of those guys, and so he was able to take us like to the exact spot and point to a spot on the pavement and say, for example, this is the exact spot where Lipton landed on D-Day, because Lipton showed me this is where he landed. Those kinds of things. So he knew a lot of those guys. Reg Johns, who was our tour guide in Bastogne, knew a lot of those guys firsthand. So that was super cool to be able to hang out with those guys and learn from them. A lot of my pictures aren't on here. So, so let's get to some more questions here. Thoughts on Toronto? I haven't been to Toronto for a long time, but I liked it the times that I've been. Or what's it like to start a YouTube channel? It is much harder than I think some people think it is. Because you hear stories of channels that grow like crazy overnight, and that is by far not how it typically happens. It's a grind, and there are going to be days that you're frustrated with it. There are going to be days when you have idiots that show up and make videos about you where they pretty much lie about everything, which just happened to me and JD. And you saw probably I didn't give them any attention. I just hid them all from the channel, but coming on and saying crap. You have to deal with that. And when you get to 300,000-400,000 subscribers, you're going to have people who hate your guts and say terrible, untrue things. And you just have to kind of let it roll off and move on. So it comes with the territory. And I am by far not a big channel compared to a lot of channels on YouTube. And don't take it for granted at all that it's hard to do. But it's a privilege too. It's a privilege to be able to do what I do and talk about something I love and get to meet and build this community with all these incredible people that I've gotten to meet over time. And this channel has afforded me the opportunities to be able to do things like a forum with Gary Edelman and Chris White and JD from History Underground, and to be able to sit down and interview Susan Eisenhower and to meet these guys from Band of Brothers and hang out with them and consider some of them friends now. And just really cool. Really, honestly, Zeffel, English is the only one I speak fluently. I can understand a little bit of German and French, just enough to get by in those places. I'm hoping to be able to carry on a conversation in German by the time I get to Munich this fall, but we'll see. Hocus Tokes, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Do I still want to fly in a Spitfire? Heck yeah. And it seems like JD's going to get to 1 million a whole lot sooner than I am. So I hope JD comes up with some really good plans for when he hits 1 million. Because it might take a while for me, because growth has been much slower. I hit 100,000 in like 3 months. I think it took another 3 months to hit 200,000, but probably only on pace to add about 50 or 60,000 new subscribers this year. So unless super crazy growth happens, it might be a while before I hit 1 million, if ever at all. We'll see what happens. And if I don't, that's totally okay too. My least favorite lost cause argument or defense that I hear much, there's so many least favorites, but the one where people try to argue that there were any other major reasons for secession besides slavery for the Deep South states. When people try to argue that, it is just so unbelievably blind to what the people themselves said when they did it that I guess I just don't understand why people want it so badly to be about something other than slavery when it clearly was about slavery to those people. I don't get that at all. I don't. Beth, awesome. Glad you're going to be there. Can't wait to meet everybody this weekend. Listen, and I have a lot of people. I actually had somebody yesterday. We were at, now bear with me for a second. My wife has a half-sister who has a half-sister. So my wife's sister's sister, her daughter's graduation party yesterday. And there was somebody there at the party who knew me from YouTube and came over and said hi. And I have a lot of people who tell me afterwards, like on YouTube, who say, oh, well, I saw you at the store, but I didn't want to bother you. Never, ever, ever think that. Please, don't ever think that. If you see me and you want to, come say hi. Come introduce yourself. Come tell me that that you know me from the channel. I love that. I absolutely do. I've had 2 people interrupt me in the middle of making a video at Napoleon's tomb in Paris. Had somebody recognize me at Westminster Abbey. You know, I had somebody show up at my hotel in Verdun when I was in France. I totally don't mind that stuff. I really enjoy it. I absolutely do. Why did Texas join the Confederacy? They joined the Confederacy because they seceded over the issue of slavery. Bottom line. Hey, enjoy Boston, Thomas. Boring old biddy. I appreciate that. But, you know, listen, don't support me on Patreon unless you are financially in a place where that's something you're able to do. Ever been to the battlefields of Richmond and Petersburg? Yes, but not nearly as much as I'd like to. I need to get there. And really, I need to get to Virginia in general. I want to go to the Shenandoah Valley and do some videos. I want to go to Appomattox and do some stuff. There's so many places I want to get to. Something positive about Woodrow Wilson. He did support women's suffrage. So there's that. Were I able to meet World War I veterans in my younger years? Not that I can recall. No, unfortunately. I wish I had. Yeah, Stephen, the final part of Useful Charts video on Christian denominations is available. And I got to give a huge shout out to Matt from Useful Charts. He emailed me like a week ago and said, hey, what's your address? Getting ready to get the charts, and I want to send you one. I was going to order one, but Matt's a great guy, and he's been so supportive of me and my channel. And I saw he tweeted today links to all of my reactions to that series. And yeah, he's sending me one of the charts. So I'll probably wait until the chart arrives so I can open it on screen while I do the reaction to the last part of that series. Why the mustache? Listen, I would have a beard, I love cake, if I could grow a beard. If I could grow an epic beard, I would definitely have one. I can't, unfortunately. I just don't. But thankfully, I have most of my hair on top of my head, so I'll take it. I'd rather have this than be able to grow a beard. History Savior, thank you for that. And I've been enjoying your stuff as well. If you guys haven't checked out History Savior 1941, check his channel out. So let's take a look. I think there was something else. So this was kind of cool, and I just showed this just because for me personally, this is such a geeked out, like, I can't believe this is my life moment for me. To be on an advertisement that has Stephen Lang's name listed and Jeff Shera and William Frazanito, whose book was the first book I ever owned on Gettysburg. And then to have my name listed under those guys is a pretty amazing moment for me. I've seen Guy Fawkes' birthplace when I was in York in the UK. All the Napoleon content recently makes me feel like you're teasing a certain series. No, but I definitely am working on my knowledge of Napoleonic warfare so I can do some battlefields on that. Favorite Civil War general that isn't Grant or Sherman? Good question. Meade. Meade is super underrated. I feel like he's underrated because after Gettysburg, Grant comes east, and Meade is kind of always in Grant's shadow. And a lot of people don't even realize Meade commanded the Army of the Potomac for the rest of the war after Gettysburg. And people forget that he had only been in command of the Army for a couple of days when he won the Battle of Gettysburg. But listen, even before Gettysburg, the guy had a really solid career as a brigade commander, as a division commander, as a corps commander. He was the guy who broke Stonewall Jackson's line at Fredericksburg. And if he'd gotten any support at all, probably could have won the Battle of Fredericksburg. Super underrated as a general. Have I met Mr. Terry in person? No, but we text quite often, and we are working on something. I keep saying it, but it's going to happen very soon. We're going to collab on something very soon. Favorite World War I general? Ooh, good question. On the German side, I would have to say Falkenhayn. On the Allied side, let's see. I don't know if I have too many real favorites, because every one of the, I'll tell you who. I'll give you one, Arthur Curry. Favorite fantastic general on the Allied side. Best book to read about the Civil War. Oh, there's so many good ones. But McPherson's series, is it Battle Cry of Freedom? Really good. Thoughts on General Burnside? Probably better general than most people give him credit for. There's a couple of generals that people think, oh, they got fired from the Army of the Potomac and that was it and they were done. But Burnside commanded troops for pretty much the rest of the war. Hooker commanded troops for pretty much the rest of the war and did a pretty solid job, especially out west. Another Mr. Beat collab in the works. We haven't talked about anything lately, but always open to that. Matt's a good friend. And yeah, I would like to get back to Fredericksburg for sure. Have I seen the illegal Hamilton? I have not. The web game called Revolutionary Choices. I'll have to check that out. You're from Eastern Ohio. Dayton's in Western Ohio, though. So if you're from Eastern Ohio, you're not around Dayton. I'm from Eastern Ohio. There were a lot of major regiments from all over the state of Ohio. I couldn't tell you specifically what regiments were from Dayton, but Ohio had hundreds of regiments. So least favorite Civil War general, and it is McClellan, actually. Yeah, and it definitely is McClellan. Because I think McClellan probably did less with more than anybody else in that war. Pacific War, nothing planned in the works. I'll leave that to my friend JD. Burnside was at Ford's Theater when Lincoln was shot, right below Lincoln's booth. Some people have actually said that Lincoln was looking at Burnside when he was shot. What Ohio City is better, Sandusky or Dayton? I prefer Sandusky. Do I think the Guardians will make the playoffs? Probably not. Do I get into the haunted Gettysburg stuff? No, not my thing. Really, unfortunately, I just not really my thing at all. I have played War of Rights. I Ultimate General was the first game I ever played on my gaming channel. What wife of Henry VIII was his favorite? Oh, Jane Seymour, because she gave him a son. Favorite historic site I've been to in the U.S.? Ooh, that's a good question. Gettysburg's probably my favorite. Did my dad start my love of history? Unlikely. I've never met my dad. My dad does love history, though, I'm told. But no. My grandfather, who was my dad, really, he raised me, definitely was a huge influence on me and fed my love of history. When I started loving history, especially the Civil War, my grandparents took me to the battlefields. They took me to Gettysburg. They took me to Manassas. They took me to Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville. And they really they did everything they could to feed my love of history. And I would not be here right now sitting here talking to you guys about this stuff had my grandparents not embraced the history nerd that I was. I have played Civilization on pretty much all of them. Does Tommy Boy have legendary status in Sandusky? I couldn't tell you. I live 2 hours from Sandusky, so I don't know it that well. Chris, are you a Burnley fan? That one hurt, man. I got to tell you, I'm not surprised that we sold Dara O'Shea, and I'll feel better about it if these rumors about Matthias Pereira coming back, even on a loan from Al Hilal, turn out to be true. I'm happy for O'Shea that he gets to play in the Premier League, but man, I got to tell you, that one hurt. That hurt a lot, losing him. Browns record prediction for this year, 11-6, and they'll make a nice playoff run. It's going to depend a lot on the quarterback play. If Deshaun Watson can play like he used to, then we'll make something of it. Waffle Bro, thank you for that. Would I ever do a collab with At and Shay? I don't know if he'd want to do one with me. We do have differences, but I agree with him much more than I disagree with him. We mainly disagree when it comes to our interpretation of the intentionality of the pro-Southern viewpoint in Gods and Generals. I think he and I both agree that it sucks as a movie. But I agree with him more often than not. And I would be willing to do that. Yes, he's somebody I would do a collab with if the opportunity presented itself. Yeah, for sure. And I don't think I always felt that way, but I do. What unanswered historical question would I like to know the answer to? Ooh, that's a great question. Mm. Let me think about that for a minute. The collab with Mr. Terry is coming. We've talked about some specific ideas of things we're going to do for that. Um, all right. Let me think about that for a while. What did I have for lunch today? Pizza. My son had a soccer tournament, and we got pizza at the concession stand. What site is better to visit, Fredericksburg or Bull Run? Probably Bull Run. Fredericksburg, a lot of the most important parts of that battlefield are not preserved, so there's nothing to see. Like Marie's Heights, there's not a lot to see there, unfortunately. Manassas is much more preserved. Unanswered historical question I would like to have an answer to. Wow, there's so many. And I'm like freezing up on one specific. Maybe some of you guys can throw some ideas out there and I can tell you what I think of them. The 9 VHS set called Civil War. If you're talking about Ken Burns' Civil War, that's what made me fall in love with the history of the Civil War. That's why I'm so passionate about the Civil War, is because of that. Is the Gettysburg 1993 movie accurate? It gets the big stuff right, but it misses so many important parts of the battle. And there's a lot of nitpicky minor stuff I would complain about, like the actor who played John Bell Hood being like 60 years old when Hood was barely 30. That kind of stuff. It just, and I understand it's based on the movie, or on the book, The Killer Angels, and so it focuses on the same point of view characters that are in that. But man, so much of the battle that it doesn't show, like the Iron Brigade on the first day, and covering a lot of stuff at Culp's Hill and the first Minnesota. I mean, there's so many more stories that they just don't even tell at all. Alexander the Great's Lost Tomb would be a good one. Genghis Khan's tomb would be a good one. What Wars of the Roses side would I be on? Fantastic question. My ancestor was a prominent Lancastrian, but I would be a Yorkist because the Yorkists were the rightful heirs to the throne. Ooh, what happened to Amelia Earhart? Good question. That would be a good one. Ken Burns' stuff in general, his documentaries, his Roosevelt's documentary is great. His one on baseball is so good. Who else do I think should be general of the armies, that kind of 6-star equivalent rank that hasn't really officially been given to Grant yet, but the president's been authorized to give it to Grant. So far we have Pershing and Washington with that rank. I'm not sure that there should be anybody else. Not really sure Pershing should have had it, but what if Lincoln had a different running mate for a second term? Wouldn't that have changed the world, man? Holy cow. Changed the world for freed slaves, that's for sure. If it had been Rosecrans, or if even Hannibal Hamlin had been kept on for another term. Your unanswered question, why the heck am I named in the top 10 India history channels? There you go. I haven't watched all of Indy's 24-hour D-Day documentary. But I mentioned, I don't know if you were here at the beginning of the stream, that I got an email from Indy a couple of days ago that I got to get back to him about. I'm trying to figure out a opportunity for him and I to meet in person at some point when I get over to Europe. What rank would I choose to be in the Civil War? Lieutenant General, because then I wouldn't be anywhere near the front lines. Chris, thank you for that. You know what? It's funny you mentioned that, because that is the one and only conspiracy theory that I believe there's even a hint of a possibility that there could be something to it. Do I believe Hitler killed himself in the bunker in Berlin? I do believe he did. Do I think there's a small remote possibility that he escaped and went to South America? Yeah, I also believe that. And I think there were plenty of people in the U.S. government who thought that was the case too. I'd give that one a 5 to 10% chance of being true. How unavoidable was World War I? I think a war of some fashion with the major powers was going to happen some point in that decade. I really do believe it was going to. I would say 80% unavoidable. Mike, thank you. What do I think of the Guadalcanal campaign in the Pacific Theater? Not talked about nearly enough. Really kind of some of U.S. ground forces' first real combat in World War II. Linax, thank you for that. Have I heard of the channel Trey the Explainer? I have not, but I'll check it out. Nick Weeks, you're going to be there. Hopefully we'll get a chance to meet. I have not heard of the Civil War Breakfast Club. Do I have a favorite presidential library? I've not been to many of them. Let me tell you the ones I've been to. I've been to the Clinton Library, the George W. Bush Library, the Reagan Library, the Nixon Library. Is that it? And the McKinley Library, because the McKinley Library is five miles from my house. That's it. Britain absolutely could have avoided joining World War I. If Belgium hadn't been invaded, they might have avoided joining it. Why is Eastern PA so different from Western PA? Because every state's different. Northeast Ohio is completely different than the rest of Ohio. Same thing. Favorite Beatles song? I don't have many. Yesterday, probably. Was Iwo Jima worth it? No, it wasn't. It turned out to be unnecessary, I think. The lives we lost on Iwo Jima didn't make up for the lives we saved by having Iwo Jima. But there was no way to know that at the time. Thoughts on Truman? Put in a really tough position. I think he did a pretty good job under the circumstances. Did I see the black bear in the tree on Baltimore Street, Van Cornish? I did. I saw somebody post that. I think it was on Instagram that I saw that. Yeah, that was crazy. Black bears, we get black bears where I live pretty often. It looks like JD posted something about me being live right now. Black bears, for the most part, they are as scared of us as we are of them, even though they could eat us if they wanted to. It's the brown bears you got to worry about, and the polar bears. Would the Central Powers have won if Britain stayed out? Yeah, they would have. And they would have won fairly quickly, I think. I've not been to Springfield, Illinois. I need to get there. Do I like any history-themed board games? Yeah, I've got quite a few. What's the one? Axis and Allies. Really into Axis and Allies. I played that a lot as a kid, and I still have it. What presidents am I related to? Like most people, I'm probably related to most of them. I'm not real closely related to any presidents. My wife's pretty closely related to First Lady Julia Tyler. Favorite NASCAR driver right now? Well, overall, Mark Martin, but he's retired. So then it would be Ryan Blaney, because his hometown and my hometown are like 10 miles apart. He's from here. So Jesse Michael, thank you for that. What sites would I like to visit in the Shenandoah Valley? I want to get back to Winchester. I've been to Winchester, but it's been a long time. New Market, Stanton, even though I know he's from there. But I want to cover the Valley campaign, like Jackson's Valley campaign, do some videos on that. Kingmaker, a board game about the Wars of the Roses. Holy cow, Joe. Thank you for that. I'm going to have to get that. And I don't know why I just typed your name in instead of looking for that. So interesting, it's called Kingmaker, named after the Earl of Warwick. Kingmaker board game. That's going to have to be one that I add to my list of games that I purchase. Got to have a Wars Over the Roses game. Yeah, Cox Moja. They're I didn't have time to put all the research together, but when I went to Normandy, I was going to do a video on the guy who filmed that stuff at the beach of that soldier getting shot, and I just didn't have time to put it all together. Yes, I'm aware of the Philippine insurrection. First historical event I witnessed in my life, and I'm assuming you mean like on TV or that I like lived through and can remember, it would be Reagan being shot. And I was like 3 when that happened. But for some reason, I remember that. And I remember Mount St. Helens erupting. Avalon Hill for Kingmaker. Okay, cool. They've got a lot of great ones. What would have been my reaction after the RFK assassination? Oh man, that would just be brutal. I mean, especially when that family had already experienced it, then to do it again, awful. So Merlin, cool story about a small light. I have been really super familiar with Meet Geese's story for a long time because I share her story in Rachel's Challenge. My friends, the Scotts, Rachel's dad and stepmom, actually knew Meep Geese. And Meep knew Rachel's story, was very familiar with Rachel Scott's story. And in fact, we believe the last photo ever taken of Meep before she died, when she was 100 years old, was taken by the Scotts on their visit with her. She waved out the window as they said goodbye to her. And she died like a week later. And so they've got pictures of them with Meep when they visited her over in the Netherlands. Remarkable woman, a crazy cool story. Meep Geese's story is, and we share her story in Rachel's Challenge. So, Andre, it wouldn't be the Iranian hostage crisis because I don't remember that. So just because it happened while I was alive doesn't mean I remember it. I was asked, what events do I remember? Is a hot dog a sandwich? Yes, and it was invented by a guy from here, from Niles, Ohio, or at least that's the claim. It wasn't really. I think he was the first guy to put one on a bun. His name was Harry Stevens. Who's the oldest person I've ever met, and when were they born? Well, I knew my great-grandfather, who was born in 1894, so he'd have to be up there. I had a great-great-grandmother alive till I was 13, but I never met her. And she was also born in 1894. She was my great-great-grandmother. But my great-grandfather was born in 1894, and I knew him really well. Got a lot of pictures of me with him. I was 5 when he died. Guy Fawkes, terrorist or a hero? Depends on who you are. One man's terrorist is another man's hero in many cases. Hey, Jerry, take care, man. Favorite church father? Ooh, good question. I'm not sure if I have a specific early church father that I have as a favorite. I have a favorite apostle, it would be Peter, because I identify with him the most. I see a lot of myself in him, I guess, is what you could say. Good and bad. But I'm a huge fan of the story of a guy named Telemachus, or Telemachus, depending on how you pronounce it. Least favorite Ohio president? Warren Harding. Hamburger? You mean Liberty Steaks? Historical figures from Ohio am I proud of? Grant, absolutely. Sherman, John Glenn, the Wright brothers. Maybe not so much Thomas Edison. Who else? Oh, I'd have to think about that a little bit. What conspiracy theory makes me mad every time I hear it? Oh, that's a good question. What did I preach on today? Lying. I did a sermon on lying today. Conspiracy theory that makes me mad every time I hear it. I'd have to think about that a little bit. Project Pass, what's going on, man? Thank you for that. Can't wait to meet this weekend. Looking forward to it. Is there a way to send me a private message? You can email me, Chris, vloggingthroughhistory@gmail.com. Favorite Bible verse, John 15:13. Greater love has no one than this, he laid down his life for his friends. You see that on a lot of British and Commonwealth grave markers in France and Belgium, places like that. John Brown was kind of from Ohio. He lived in Ohio. I think he's actually... Was he born in Ohio? Yeah, maybe he was. Yeah, but I'm not necessarily all that proud of John Brown. I think there's kind of a mixed bag there. The flat earth thing is like that one does infuriate me quite a bit. It just boggles the mind how anybody thinks that's true. When I was in school, it was the last historical event I was taught on. You know, and honestly, I can't remember. That's been a long time. I graduated high school 28 years ago. Here's the thing, Hunter. Custer wasn't just born in Ohio. I know a lot of people say he grew up in Michigan, but he didn't. He spent more of his under 18 years in Ohio than he did in Michigan. Not that we necessarily want to claim him all that much, but I live about an hour from Custer's birthplace. And he actually taught school. He taught school in Hopedale, Ohio, which is where some of my ancestors grew up. I don't think he would have taught them because they would have been there sooner than that. But what moment in history do I think has had the biggest impact on today? Oh, wow. Honestly, it would have to be the life of Jesus and the life of Muhammad. I think those two human lives existing on this earth have had the greatest impact on history. Yeah, I'll probably try to do something else by J.J. McCulloch at some point. Historia Civilis is definitely coming soon. Vince, yes, I am a preacher. I was a youth pastor for 14 years. I've been preaching at a small church here in Northeast Ohio for the last 7 years now. Just part-time. I preach on Sunday mornings, and that's about it. Don't do much else beside that. The Little League Pledge. I don't know what that is. No, my kids don't play baseball. They'll play soccer. What subjects of education am I interested in besides history? Probably science. I like science. Science is pretty cool. Favorite boxer? Not really have one. I'm not really into boxing all that much, unfortunately. My daughter's channel is back. She got it back a few weeks ago. Let's take a look. I don't know if I have any other things I can show you from the recent trip here. While we're chatting, I'm just looking at a few things here. Let's see. No, most of my pictures aren't on here for some reason. All right, well, we'll go a few more minutes here, guys. Is there going to be a Patreon vote? Yeah, we're going to do that, Steven. That's a great idea. I'll try to post something up tonight. I'm actually in the process, by the way, with Patreon, I'm in the process of, for the first time, I don't want to use the word outsourcing, but bringing somebody onto my team to help me with that. I feel like I don't do enough with Patreon. And I don't mean like in terms of growing it and adding more people. I mean just in doing things for the existing patrons who support this channel. We have over 500 of them. I want to be able to do more with that and make the most of it. And so I'm bringing a guy on. He's actually the guy who does Patreon for the World War II channel, for Indy Nidell's channel, for World War II channel. He does their stuff. And so he's going to be coming on and kind of helping me. He just sent me over a proposal for some stuff he'd like to do with the Patreon channel. So I'm working on that. So I want to make more use of our patrons and do a better job of using that platform to give back, but also open it up to new folks. So he's going to be helping me with that. A pivotal battle or event in the Civil War overlooked by many people. Champion Hill. Definitely the Battle of Champion Hill. I have seen the channel Old Britannia. I have visited Philly, but it's been a long time, and I haven't done it for like the channel specifically, but I've been to Philly. What historical event do all non-history fans should read or know about? I think it's World War I. I really do. One historical thing that goes extremely unnoticed compared to its consequences. I think the French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars. Is this where the people who don't like Woodrow Wilson meet? Yes, you are most welcome here. Always. Are battlefields under the National Park Service? A lot of them are, not all of them. Some battlefields are locally owned. There's a lot of different organizations, but Gettysburg, Antietam, those, for example, are our National Park Service. Newmarket's Field of Shoes. That's actually not a bad movie. It's got some decent parts to it, the Field of Lost Shoes movie. Thank you guys for the comments on the stash, by the way. I don't know how long it'll last. You know what, Chris? I planned on going to the Imperial War Museum when I was in London in January, and I just ran out of time. Do I think a bearded age will return? I hope not, because I can't grow a beard. It's not for lack of trying. Yeah, Matthew, 100%. Champion Hill is the decisive battle of the Vicksburg campaign. And Vicksburg is, to me, one of the decisive campaigns of the war. So, therefore, Champion Hill is super important. Cosmos, York, PA. Yes, been to York a few times. What is my stance on the atomic bombs used during World War II? It was the right decision with the information and situation that was presented to Truman. Were I in Truman's position, I would have done the same thing. Absolutely. And that's where I'll leave it, because honestly, this whole looking back 80 years later and judging the decision is meaningless to me. The only decision that matters to me is what should he have done with the information he had and the situation that he was handed. And what he did was the right call in that situation. And I stand by that 100%. Yeah, I hear great things about the Imperial War Museum. I want a beard too, I just can't grow one. A video on Hamilton versus Burr. Ooh, I should do that. I wouldn't want to have a drink with Grant just because Grant couldn't hold his liquor and he shouldn't drink, and I wouldn't want to encourage that. I would love to have a ginger ale with Grant. My favorite song from Hamilton? You'll Be Back and Wait For It are my favorite two. And you know what, Daniela, you make a great point. I almost said the French and Indian War and the 7 Years' War as my answer to that question about the thing that people don't study enough that really had huge consequences. Because the 7 Years' War leads to the American and French revolutions, which leads to the Napoleonic War, which leads to the Franco-Prussian War, which leads to World War I, World War II. It's all connected. Thoughts on Edmund Burke? Don't have a lot. It's not really an area of history that I get too much into. Historical area I would like to learn next. I want to know more about the Napoleonic Wars than I do. It's quiet up. Listen, favorite song and what do I think are the best songs are two different questions. It's Quiet Uptown is one of the most brilliantly written songs I have ever heard. As a dad, and I wrote a song, and maybe that's a story I'll share. I wrote a song about the perspective of a parent losing a child. And I think It's Quiet Uptown so unbelievably, perfectly captures the emotion of what the Hamiltons must have been feeling after their son was killed in that duel. It's a brilliant song. That song and the last two, which are The World Was Wide Enough, and then what's the closing song? Oh my gosh. They're both fantastic. They're so good. There's so much emotion. Lin-Manuel Miranda is a brilliant songwriter, like a once in a generation songwriter. He's so good. Have I seen both 1916 videos? Yes. Did Hamilton throw away his shot? Yeah, he did. Garfield would have been one of our best presidents had he lived his full term. I totally believe that. No way to prove it, though, because there's no way. Hurricane, to listen to the soundtrack, it's one I always skip. It's probably my least favorite song on the soundtrack. Now, in the context of watching the musical on stage, it's really good and it makes total sense because it perfectly captures what Hamilton was thinking when we sit there and think to ourselves, what were you thinking in writing the Reynolds pamphlet? It captures what he was thinking really well, but it's not a great song to listen to on the soundtrack, really. Justinian or Diocletian? Justinian. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story? Thank you, Nicholas. Oh my gosh, those two songs at the end are so incredible. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story? The way they focus on the fact that Eliza Hamilton lived another 50 years after her husband. And when they get to the part of the song where they say, the orphanage, oh, hits you right in the feels every time. This woman honored her late husband, who was an orphan, by starting an orphanage that still exists in New York today. I think it's called Graham Wyndham now. So cool. Amazing. Favorite founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton. It is. Do I have any videos on General Pemberton? I talked a little bit about him in one of my videos on the Vicksburg campaign. Did Garfield love lasagna, hate Mondays? Not to my knowledge. Favorite of the museums and monuments in D.C. for a fellow dad to take your kid? American History Museum's fantastic. Air and Space, 100%. Got to do that. 8-year-old's probably a little young for the Holocaust Museum, or else I would recommend that one because it's really, really good. So I would say those two, Air and Space and History Museum. The Science Museum's great too. 8-year-old kid would probably really love the Science Museum. Johnston absolutely should have been in command at Vicksburg. Do I think Meriwether Lewis died by his own hand? Yes, I do. Do I think the Iron Brigade was the best fighting brigade of the war? The First Corps was disbanded because they were too small. They had lost too many men. I think the Iron Brigade has to be in that conversation, yeah. It's impossible to say one brigade for sure, but they have to be in that conversation for sure. Texas Brigade's got to be in that conversation. Orphan Brigade needs to be in it. I have not visited Kitty Hawk. I love the special relationship with the U.S. and the U.K., my two favorite countries. I have seen South Mountain. I have not visited the battlefield. I don't know if JD's still here, but he could probably tell you more. I know he's done videos at South Mountain. The stash icon in the Discord. Yes, I remember that, Professor What. First lady ranking. Ooh, that would be tough, though. Favorite state beside Ohio, Kentucky. I'm very drawn to my own home states. I'm not really a Reddit guy, Andre. I've spent very, very little time on Reddit. My daughter's more into that than I am. All right, we're going to wrap this up here in just a couple of minutes. I need to eat some dinner. I haven't eaten yet. I only had a piece of pizza for lunch, so I didn't have much for lunch either. Was the Schlieffen plan right? Yeah, if they would have stuck with it. Adam Davies, what part of South Wales are you in? My wife and I have roots in South Wales. Got 3 videos from South Mountain. So there you go. Check out History Underground. Watch his videos from South Mountain. That'll help you to know whether or not it's worth making a visit to. I haven't really visited the battlefield there. I should. If I were on the Oregon Trail, would I have survived? What would have killed me? Dysentery. I would have died of dysentery like everyone else. You know how many times I've died of dysentery on the Oregon Trail? Would I change any faces on Mount Rushmore? Yeah, I would sandblast Thomas Jefferson off there as quickly as I possibly could. Not a Jefferson fan. Favorite war? Such a weird question to me. But I get what you're saying. World War I's the most interesting one for me to study right now. World War I and the American Civil War. Should MLK be on any money? Honestly, I think we should rotate who's on the money. I don't think it should be the same people all the time, and he should be in that rotation of people. I'd love to see them follow through and put Harriet Tubman on some money. There's a lot of great Americans we could be putting on money instead of keeping the same old people on it all the time. Favorite fast food restaurant? Chick-fil-A. You're in Cardiff? Okay, you're not far from where my family's from. Steven, I'm going to get to your question in just a second. I've talked about this before, but cool fun fact in my family. So my wife, her maiden name is Watkins, right? And her Watkins family came from Blaina, which is right here. All right, so they came from Blaina, and before that from a town called Mynedijsseluen. It sounds every bit as complicated to spell as it looks. I'm trying to find it here on the map so I can show it to you. But they primarily came from Blaina right here. So then there's this big hill right here, right? And then over here is Ebbwvale, which is where my Croft ancestors came from. So her great-great-grandfather was born in Blaina, and my great-great-grandfather was born in Ebbwvale, opposite sides of the same hill there in Wales. So that's kind of cool. So we definitely want to visit that spot at some point. I'm trying to find where Mynedijsseluen is. I think it's up here somewhere. I think it's real close to a place called... Okay, so it might be over here more. Where the heck is Mynedijsseluen? I would show it to you if I could tell you how it's spelled. There it is. Here's Mynedijsseluen. So this is primarily where her roots are, is this little village of Mynedijsseluen right there. Wales has some epic names. Chick-fil-A, I could eat there 7 times a day. Yeah, absolutely could. I have not been to the National World War I Museum in KC. I definitely got to get there. We'll probably have to take JD along since he lives out that way. So, all right, let's do a couple last questions. I want to get to one question real quick before I wrap up here that somebody asked me. Where is it? I saw it. Stephen Parker. Excursions to Germany and Italy have been popular. When will I announce the next one? I'm holding off. We'll probably do at least 2 more. They want me to do at least 4 in 2024, the tour company does. But I'm looking at some other things too. Because these ones are a little pricey, and I get that they're not for everybody. I want to do some cheaper options and some other options too. So I want to do something here in the States where we visit some Civil War battlefields. So I want to do that. So I'm looking at something like that. I also want to do something with Western Front battlefields, like going to the Somme, Ypres, Verdun, things like that. So I'm looking into those options. But there is actually one spot that has opened up on the Munich, Salzburg, Vienna trip for October. But that one, I think, has to be fully paid by mid-July. So the time is closing in on when people can sign up for that one. The Italy one is next April, so it's a little further out. So I'm kind of holding off on announcing any more until we get a little closer. Because the next one will probably be summer 2024, and that's still like a year away. But probably going to be Scotland or England. The next 2 will probably be in the UK through that tour company. So anyway, so there's that. Yeah, I definitely, Rob, want to do a Western Front tour. And it would be the kind of tour that people wouldn't necessarily have to sign up through the tour itself, but could kind of tag along if they wanted to, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things where maybe we would just do it together and we would all travel, and I would say, here's the dates and here's where we're going to be, and probably bring in one of the local guides, bring in like a Paul Reed or somebody who, like, as much as I pride myself on trying to know a lot about those battlefields, somebody who knows those battlefields like I will never know those battlefields, and bring them in to do that. So I love Time Team, Jan Wallace, 100%. So yeah, so I want to do that. Definitely do something Western Front, Rob, and I'll definitely get you included on that, and you can tell some stories. A bunch of us can tell some of the stories that we know for that. So definitely would love to have you guide. All right, guys, I'm out. Thank you so much for joining the stream. It's been a while since I've done a legit actual live stream. So thanks for joining. and we'll see you again real soon. Can't wait to see a bunch of you in Gettysburg.